Hello and welcome to the Front Row Back Row podcast. My name is Owen Campbell. I am the owner of Simplify Motion Physical Therapy, Dr. Owen Campbell, sorry. And with me,
Sure,
as
sure.
always, is Dr. Brian Wolf, owner of Evolution PT and Fitness in Connecticut and Long Island. Brian, you ready to hear my sob story today?
I mean, yes, I am. Even though it's not a sob story, let's do it. Let's do it.
So for those of you that don't know, and I know in the previous episodes we talked about, I am trying to take some of these lessons we're learning and talk about and putting them into action. As a lot of you know, my niche is with golfers, right? I'm in Phoenix and Scottsdale. Lots of golfers here. If they're not doing that primarily, they do it on the side. So it's a good niche to get into, right? So I wanted to start a clubhead speed program, and clubhead speed is basically the metric we use, kind of like in baseball, for how fast your pitch is. Clubhead speed is how fast you're swinging the golf club. So it's a good physical metric of the swing. I put together a class. I got a few people together. We did a 6-week class. I charged them a low fee for my time because I was using it as what we call a lead magnet. Now, lead magnets are things where you give the client something close to what your normal one-on-one session or something would be, but not quite that, so that it introduces them to you, introduces them to your service, and then makes them more willing to use the higher priced or higher fee service. So I did this thing, had these people work out 6 weeks straight, and I measured their speed at the beginning and at the end. So they were getting stronger. They were telling me it felt better through the course, that they felt more flexible, all the stuff that we typically hear in a physical therapy course of care. And then it got to the measurement. And when we measured what they were swinging, they swung the exact same range. Swung the exact same miles per hour. So, of course, yeah, thanks for the wah wah
Sound effect.
trombones. So, of course, I called up Brian immediately, screaming at the phone, saying, "What the heck happened?" And of course, he's like, "You're fine. It'll be fine." So, so we thought it would be a good case study to put on this for physical therapy entrepreneurs who may be thinking about offering a lead magnet, taking some of those courses and kind of developing it to a bigger population than just people in pain, more of that wellness component. And I just wanted to give a briefish. I think I took 2 minutes talking about that. A brief overview of what happened to me, and then kind of where I should go from here. So, Brian, what are your thoughts on me completely screwing up and not getting anyone better?
I mean, I think and I use this. I use the analogy to Owen is a lot of again doing a deeper dive into what actually happened because clearly, if people were feeling better, right, at what you were
Yeah,
doing, and people liked what you were doing, that means you've got something, right? It doesn't necessarily mean you have what you thought you had, and I think that's what happened, right? Like I think when we think about and Owen and I talked about this. He left this out of the story. And for those that we do a pre-show and we talk about this stuff and we chatted about it. One of the things that I equated this to was I did a lacrosse shot program, very similar, where you increase the velocity of a Premier Lacrosse League athlete. And we were testing it, and we did it all summer. We did it with one-on-one athlete. We did the testing. We knew the science. We knew it made sense. When we had him shoot, he shot a max velocity like 99 miles an hour, and then by the end of the summer, he was able to do that 24 straight times. He wasn't able to do that many times the time before. So we saw a marked improvement. Now the difference was he didn't shoot 105, 110, right? But but from a physical therapy perspective, and Owen and I were talking about this, basically when you think about what a shot velocity program would look like, I think the one component we missed, we were like, oh, we missed this like pull down method, which would be just working on a legit max velocity once a week or whatnot, right? Where clearly we were building the capacity because we think about from a physical therapy and strength and conditioning perspective, to build the ability to actually shoot or build club at speed, we're gonna have to look at technique of the actual person swinging a golf club. We're going to actually have to look at the capacity for their ability to move it through space, aka power and speed. And then the third is going to be to actually work on the ability to do it at a maximum velocity through the central nervous system. So teaching them how to swing as hard as they possibly freaking can, right? And
Mhm.
so I didn't do that in that shot speed program. And that's why I think that the top end speed didn't go up, but therefore, like I got the full speed. But we were talking with Owen. Owen was like, well, I don't think I'm going to market this anymore as a club at speed program. And I was like, that's not what you need to do, right? Like, I still sell that program as a shot speed program, right?
Mhm.
It just doesn't include that certain feature of like shoot the ball as hard as you possibly can 2 times, 2 times a week, once a week, whatever you want to do, right? And
Yeah.
so I think when it came to remember what this was, as Owen said, it was a lead magnet. It was a
Mhm.
lead to get people into at a lesser price into introducing your other services. And when we talked about it, it clearly was effective. As we talked about on other podcasts, Club at Speed has something to it. It has a
Yep.
word to it that people like, and therefore it's something you should continue to utilize. That being said, I think setting some expectations and pre-framing it a little bit earlier to be like, we'll see improvement. And generally what we see is either the club head speed top end goes up, or most people feel better throughout the round and are able to maintain their club head speed. And that is a club head speed program that's effective. So like
Mhm.
when Owen's saying like the self-deprecating mind trolls getting in
Mhm.
there, he's like, I didn't get anybody better. But the reality is like you did say that to me, like, right? Like people felt
Yeah.
that improvement.
And that was the big response because I did I channeled you a little bit and said, "Okay, I want video testimonials." One of the guy was he was in marketing, so he's like, "Are you going to do video testimonials?" And I was like, "Yes, I am," and which has been great for social media. But their biggest feedback was that they felt better, they could play longer, their pain wasn't as prevalent or wasn't even there, and even though that metric didn't improve on their top end. So I think your point is what's really going to drive what I'm doing next is that when somebody comes in, I may not even measure their club head speed because frankly it's kind of annoying to set up and measure it. But even if I decide to measure it, I'm going to tell them, look, the benefit of this is that you can play all 18 holes at this club head speed, not
Yes.
just you look really good on the second tee, but on the 16th you can't even get it to the fairway. So
Yeah, at least
um,
initially, like that's the take that I would have from this. My first reaction was you downshifted a little bit,
yeah.
right? And what we talked about is again from a lead magnet, the lead magnet is to get the person to buy something
Mhm.
and eventually move into a more what we call a higher LTV, something that's actually going to make them pay you more money, right?
So let's talk about that from the business
Yeah.
sense because I think that's the big part here. We can talk PT
Yes.
all we want, but so I now have this program, and it's something that I'm doing again, and I'm offering it at a low amount of money per hour. Consider it's probably about a third of what I would charge per hour
Mhm.
on a one-to-one rate. Um, Now, what do I do? Do I increase the rate of that class, right? Or do I maybe push my own you know business harder, right, where it's one-to-one? What would be some kind of things that either I could do in my case, or if say somebody's doing a pelvic health for lifters and they do a workshop or a
Yeah.
few workshops in a row, and they have a few people who are like, oh, these are great, these give me everything I want. How do they turn that league magnet into more consistency and more a more consistent client? Or do they just say, hey, I'm just happy a lot of people know my stuff now, I was able to get to more people?
Yeah, I think it depends on the goal of what you're trying to do, right?
Yeah.
And so I think if the goal, and I believe the goal for you with this program was to get people to work with you more one on one, correct?
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
So
I will say it was twofold because I'm new, so I kind of wanted to
yeah,
also have some credibility in the space. But yeah, I mean, obviously, it was to get more
yeah.
people to do one-on-one sessions.
How many people did it again? 5 or 6?
We had four.
4. So here's
Yeah.
my thinking, right, of what I would do here. So 4 people, the
Hmm.
amount you charge is about you got about a third of what you would get, right? Like in terms of like if you were doing a one on one.
Yeah, I
My
would say.
take My take on this is I would, and I know that you've got like a small studio in this way, because so you also got to think about your space limitations here, and this is for people listening, like these space limitations. I would just triple the size, if not 10x the size, right? Like just do a larger group thing. A really good model that I've realized is you have a large group class that feeds your small group and your one on ones. And
Mhm.
so in theory, if you what you and people and the mistake that people make is they'll be like, well, it's going to be kind of like crowded in here if we have 16 people. I'm like, good, because the reality is if it's 16 people and people are like,
Mhm.
I'm crowded, I want them to feel that. Because remember, this is
Yeah.
our lead magnet. If someone's like, "Oh, it's kind of crowded," be like, then it opens up the conversation. Oh, I know, we're busy. This product's really popular. People like it.
Yeah.
If you're interested, I'm happy to do like a one-on-one with you, and that's what you see when it naturally prompts that conversation. So
Yeah.
like I would actually increase it to wherever you are to make it an uncomfortable environment. That's how busy it is. It does
Mm.
two things. You can keep the price low a little bit at the beginning, and
Mhm.
two, it increases your actual what you're making, right? So
Yeah.
in theory, it allows you to actually make more money while also eventually probably making better segue into what your ultimate goal is, which is to get more people in there. That's exactly what I
Yeah.
would do, and I would market it the exact same way because clearly that was effective.
Mhm.
And I would just sign up more people,
Yeah.
and what I would do is in that way of getting those more leads is what I would do is say, okay, now that I have this bigger class, I'm going to be more bullish on. I would still test the club head speed, and I would just reframe a little bit, being like, what most people see is not necessarily the top end speed right out of the gate. I
Mhm.
have seen that if they work with me and we do more stuff long term. However, from a standpoint of the class, you will definitely hold a better way of like throughout 18 holes, you'll actually be able to keep that club head speed the entire time. That's been shown in this class.
Yeah.
And you see how I just teased the like I do stuff like this one-on-one privately,
Yeah.
right? And so you just give them that like kind of like prompt. And then one thing that I love is about halfway through this whole process,
Mhm.
you start meeting with people and being like, they're like, wow, I'm feeling a lot better, man. Like halfway through, I'm feeling a lot better. Being like, awesome. You like this from 3 weeks? Imagine if you did this for 3 months. Imagine if you did this for the next three years, the difference you would feel, right? How
Yeah.
crazy is that, right? The impact in just 3 weeks. Like imagine being more consistent like that. And
Yeah.
now you've planted the seed of like what life after the class looks like.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's how you would create that process. And then, in the last week, you're still doing that pitch to be like, hey, what do you think? Like, I know you were doing this, you love the class. Like, what do you think life like this looks like afterwards? And a big enough group like that, you got 12 to 16 people in this group, you're going to get one or two that take you up on that.
Yeah.
Right. And
Yeah.
and now you just achieved your goal and just crushed it.
Yeah. And that's it is the end goal is what you have to keep in mind through all this. I
Yeah.
called you immediately after those numbers didn't come in, but then I'm like, wait, after talked about it, looked at it, okay, I got some people telling their friends. I didn't have to spend any money on the second cohort. Like the advertising money from the first one, which was already pretty low,
Yeah.
got me the second one just by word of mouth. So to be able now, it's like, okay, maybe I will throw some more money at this. It increases my confidence
Yes.
that it's something I want to spend my time in. And to hear of people doing this, hear of you doing it, right, at Evolution, knowing that somebody's done this before and it has worked for them, all of these things come in together to make me. I think the biggest thing I got from this is confidence, right?
For
The fact
sure.
that, because I'm blind, right? I'm blind in a lot of ways on that, because I'm like, okay, here's some money, hopefully it works, right? You click yes on that Instagram ad, which, thank you, by the way. The class, I have absolutely used the class on our school classroom, and
Nice.
I'm running 3 ad campaigns through
Sweet.
Meta Business Manager. So thank you.
Sweet. I love it. I
Uh,
love it. For those that don't
um,
know, they got to check it out. It's great.
a little plug.
Yeah.
But that now has gotten me way more confident to be like, yeah, throw money at it. Because I think I spent maybe $100, because I did do some other advertising after our last podcast. I spent
Yep.
maybe $100, but I pulled in somewhere around 1,000 in terms
Yeah.
of just this class. So a 1 to 10, I mean, that's 10xing my return.
I mean,
Like,
that's monster, right? Like
yeah, yeah,
just on this alone. Now, just think about that, right? All right. So the idea behind the math on that, just to start getting people kind of psyched about this type of stuff and the stuff that I love about it. Say you spend $400 on that,
yeah,
and you get 16 people signed up, right?
yeah,
That's again, you did $10, right? It was $100, 1,000. So
yeah,
400 should be 4,000. And here's where
yeah,
the number starts getting crazy. Instead of it being again a 10-to-1 type of process, the difference is it goes from a $900 profit to it goes to a $3,600 profit. The
yeah,
number at 10 times starts to go up and up and up, compounding exponentially. So the
Yeah.
money starts getting real quick. And so
Yeah.
that's the aspect of what you can do. And by the way, again, this is a lead magnet we're talking about. Like what you've got here going, most
Yeah.
lead magnets you got to give away for free, guys, right? Like you got to give it
Yeah.
away for free. Owen's figured out a lead magnet to a service that's paying him. That's huge, dude. Like that,
Yeah.
like that's what I'm saying. Like when you're like, oh, I didn't do well. I'm like, this was a success from the beginning. You just got the reps in and realized, oh, there's one little thing that I didn't do properly. Okay.
Yeah.
Like the
Yeah.
hope is that you can do this 9 million more times and just like some lines that I've heard that I love is it would be unreasonable to think that on your first time you're going to get it perfect. My 9-year-old daughter wants to go audition for this thing, and I'd be like, it'd be unreasonable for you to get this against high school kids on the very first try at 9 years old, wouldn't it?
You
Right?
you
Like
you mean to think a guy that's been told for 20 years by the educational system, if you don't get a B, you're a failure,
it,
has some issues with failing?
and by the way, to your point, this is why people fail in business all the time. They're not willing
Yeah.
to take the risks. They're not willing to learn from the risks. Like if you fail, like what's the old adage? Like the stuff about Thomas Edison learning how to make a light bulb. He said
Oh, I
he's
don't
like
know.
he took he it was I think the quote is it took him 10,000 tries to learn how to invent the light bulb. And
Yeah.
he basically was like, I just learned 9,999 ways not to invent the light bulb. Like you
Yeah.
learn from your mistakes until you get it. And so you
Yeah.
just got to increase your threshold for what you got to do to learn. And so
Well, and
that's what you've done here.
I think that's why all the math on the most successful entrepreneurs aren't people who got the PhD and always were perfect all the time,
Yeah.
because I think there's some break point where the ones who really, like you said, 10x at whatever, they're the ones who are just like, oh, I don't know, I didn't know that was that much of a risk, or oh,
Mhm.
whatever, it's got to fail, I can pick myself up later,
Hell yeah.
and that's where that science comes from. So,
Yeah. I mean, do you
okay,
think like Elon Musk got this properly, the Tesla, the first time he ever wrote it up? I mean, maybe he's a genius, but in terms of the business model, I mean, it's well documented that he didn't get it right. You know
yeah,
what I mean? So
yeah,
it took him years and years and years, and now he's richest man on the planet. So
yeah.
I think a lot of it's just the consistency and work and what you can do from that perspective. I think it's a monster.
Yeah. So then now I have all these people who know that I'm a golf guy, right?
Yeah,
Now I think the biggest thing that I need to work on myself is, and this is something that we've kind of touched on back and forth, but how to keep that momentum going, right? So
yeah,
I think the big thing, obviously, I know as a PT to talk to my patients or talk to my clients. Hey, tell your friends, right?
yeah.
And honestly, that got me a few people. To be fair, the people in the second class are friends of some of the people in the first class.
So good.
I think I
That
had
by the way,
one.
that's also should also give you confidence that your product didn't suck.
Yeah,
Number one,
yeah.
because
Well,
if your product sucks, people are not going to tell their friends about doing it. That
that's true.
simple. Yeah,
Yeah.
and anybody who's like, "Well, my product is so good that their friends didn't want to tell them because they want to keep it all themselves," you're fucking an idiot, right? So like that's not how that works, right? If
Yeah.
you're not getting referrals from your clients and they're not dragging people in the door,
Yeah.
that means that your product sucks. So again,
Yeah.
kudos, man. Again, and get another feather in the cap, right?
There you go. See, I'm telling you, I should just start putting a down payment on a gym right now. Have my own thing.
There you go, man. There you go. Just got to go bigger. That's it.
There you go. And I mean that's the worry though, right? You start off with nothing. You're just, you get your first patient, first few patients. Oh man, that guy just gave me $150. I've never been
Yeah,
paid that much for an hour in my life.
for
And
sure.
then you protect that money like it's, your baby, and you're so not willing to spend it. So things like this will allow you, or allow me at least, to be like, yeah, whatever. Put 200 down on black, because it's not a 50-50 now. It's
Exactly.
a pretty good gamble now that I have a little bit of data. So
For sure. For sure. I mean, I think when you think about, I think when you think about how this kind of grows and how it works and what you do next, right? I mean,
yeah,
we've talked a lot about where these people come from. I think that putting content and doing anything around that from the group and putting it on social media is going to be gigantic. Obviously, now you're doing paid ads, you're feeling better about that. I
yeah,
think doing outreach to golfers that you know in the area, and like, hey, I think you really like this program. I just ran it. I got some really good feedback on it. Doing that type of outreach is really effective. And then we'll talk more about it in school. Hint, hint about it is then setting up referral partners. It's like how to set that up with different people, because that's
yeah,
something where now if you can do those types of processes, you can actually make you can start creating a funnel where you're getting leads all the time for this. And so
Yeah.
then by creating a wait list, you effectively can be running these programs all the time. I mean, you can build a business just on this,
Yeah. Well,
right?
I think that's the coolest part about this podcast. I mean, obviously, we're in the orthopedic physical therapy realm, so
Yeah.
people listening to this who are orthopedic physical therapists are picking right up on it. But I mean, this could be, an OBGYN's office doing workshops with,
Yeah.
different women's health issues. It could be geriatrics doing, going to an assisted living facility and doing a course on or a workshop on fall reduction. All these things that allow
Yes.
you to kind of test the waters, figure out your market, right? You have to figure out, maybe somebody in their 70s might be more to be on Facebook than TikTok, right? But it can be all applied across all different healthcare businesses, honestly, all different businesses, to be completely fair.
One
But
thousand
in
percent.
the service industry in particular, where really you're just kind of saying, okay, I have to be willing to give my time for a little bit cheaper for a longer road, a longer period ahead gain. That's a
Yeah.
little bit easier to do than trying to make something cheaper, like a widget or whatever. Sometimes you can't do it, right? You can't get the
Yeah.
materials. So I think at least for service industry, in particular healthcare, but anything, this is just. I mean, it's tried and tested, right? If we were talking to someone who has been a salesperson for 30 years, he'd be like, "Yeah, duh, buddy."
Yeah,
But
I think you nailed it. Is that this is in every single business. This is in
yeah,
every single business, right? How to create a product, how to perfect it, how to utilize it to improve other products that you've got, right? And
yeah,
how to, again, increase the value of every customer that you bring in, right? And so I
mhm,
think from this perspective, you have found a lead magnet that's crushing it. Now you just advertise the crap out of it and have
yeah,
lots of people, and then what you're going to end up doing is then getting lots of one-on-one clients out of it, and then the goal then becomes next is how do I get more and more people to, and this is where then adding employees can be helpful, because now all of a sudden you find another physical therapist or a strength and conditioning guy to perfect it a little bit better, and now all of a sudden they're running the majority of those classes,
mhm,
and then they're feeding you, and
yeah,
you're doing the one-on-ones, and then you find another person that's doing the one-on-ones in the classes, and now you can elevate your authority, and now you can charge more money even more, right? So like this is how you start to level up, right, as you
yeah,
do this. So it scales as well, which is what's really cool about this. So people just don't know about the program now. You know what to do. It's just advertising this.
yeah,
Now you've got, and then what happens is for every time that you do the class, it's going to get better and better and better and better. That's
yeah,
awesome, right? That's the
yeah.
idea behind it.
Yeah. So yeah, this therapy session has been lovely. Confidence now through the roof.
Yet again.
Uh, yep. And of course, you guys heard us mention it, but we do have a classroom going, a mentorship. We call it the Front Row Back Row podcast, or sorry, Front Row Back Row Mentorship. Um, and it is on the school platform. The platform is awesome. It allows us to do classes. Usually, we usually keep it like 10-15 minutes, something that you can put on YouTube while you're, I don't know, making breakfast or something, all the way down to something you can listen to while you're driving around. But it's more specific. It's nuts and bolts. It's how do you get in and out of all these different things. And I've just clearly I've seen benefit from it. So hopefully you will too. And I mean obviously we'll plug it. We'll put it in the show notes. But actually we're about to go record a new one now. So look for
Yep.
that.
And I think the goal that we're trying to do with these things is be super tactical, right? So like how we can help people. Like Owen said, there's not really, we're not trying to have fluff here. It's do you want to make more money at this profession, and do you want to learn how to level up your career and put yourself in a better position? You should
Yeah.
join this program and check this out. Like everything that we're putting in together. I mean, look, there's two different ways that you can do this, which is you can put in the time to learn it yourself, or you can pay people to teach you how to do it. We're not even
Yeah.
charging for this yet. So in
Yeah.
that way, you could skip all the steps without paying anything. So
Yeah.
we are using this as our lead magnet right now, so that we can teach you how to actually do this, and like you can grow it and do what we do. So there's
Yeah.
definitely some ways to help and do this. So it's just a matter of taking the lead, guys.
Yeah. Let us prove to you that we know what we're talking about.
Yes, exactly, exactly.
All right. And with that, we are finished, my man. Have a good one.
You too, buddy. See ya.
See ya.